What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm Tom, the OG Fig Kid, the staple of the Turnbuckle Debate.
And we have a special guest joining us today. We have Joey from the Angle Podcast. Joey, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you guys? Appreciate you guys having me on.
Good, man. We're glad to have you here. Before we get started, man, tell everybody about the podcast, about the Angle Podcast.
Of course, yes. So the Angle Podcast, I like to call it as the Ultimate Pro Wrestling Podcast. A bunch of great interviews, prediction and preview shows, review shows, all things pro wrestling, really. And you can check it out at The Angle Radio on all social media.
That's awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, we're glad to have you on the debate show. We love having like-minded wrestling fans come on so we can debate some controversial topics sometimes. Who knows? So what we'll do, I know you submitted a question, but just to give everybody, any first-time listeners, what we do, it's 3 questions. We do about 10 to 15 minutes per question. Everybody gets their answers in, and we just go round table.
Yeah, man. Get
awesome.
Shit in.
And most of the time we don't listen to Tom. So, but if you guys are ready, man, we'll get right into it.
Yeah, fire it off.
All right. All right. So our first question of the evening: whose stock was hurt more on Raw, Keith Lee or Karrion Kross?
I'm going to go Keith Lee for now because, as stupid as this sounds, I think they have an angle for Karrion Kross, which they're going to mess up anyway. So in the end, they'll both be hurt just as much. But for now, just the way the Kross cut the promo afterwards, I'm going to go Keith Lee because they just buried the guy coming back who got a decent pop. It was just a weird circumstance. He's been gone for so long. Here he is, and you just squashed him to the champion, a guy who could have won a hell of a match, could have made Lashley look better. And it's just so dumb. Both things were dumb.
He lost to the champion, whereas Karrion Kross was the champion.
A champion and lost to Jeff Hardy to a roll-up.
In that,
to me, it's Karrion Kross. I mean,
100%.
But at least it looks like an angle with that. Like, oh, Jeff Hardy made the biggest mistake of his life.
Angle.
I still don't think that even matters when you're the champ, man.
Here's the thing. It's not just that Karrion lost. That's one thing. He's the champion, which is bad enough in itself, but you're not just shining him. I don't want to say bury. Bury is thrown around so hard. So I don't want to say they buried Karrion, but you're not only shining a negative light on Karrion Kross, you're shining a negative light on an entire company.
That's true.
You're NXT.
Oh, you act as if like Raw is not terrible and ruining the whole company. It's the whole freaking show.
Yeah, but don't bring NXT down with that censorship.
That's really what they do with that. I mean, if you look at Keith Lee, for example, he was brought back obviously to pop the crowd. You know, it's the first Raw back. Let's do something great. I mean, you already have Cena and Goldberg and all this. There's no more words. All these other surprises. Bring Keith Lee back. If he loses, well, guess what? He's not necessarily buried. It's just letting the fans know that he's not going to be in the WWE title picture right now. So next week, he can come out and start a program with Sheamus for the U.S. title, and it's going to work. It's just to let you know that he's not the guy right now. Where with Karrion Kross, he already is the guy. You had him lose to a guy. I'm seeing all over Twitter people saying Jeff Hardy's a jobber. He's not a jobber. I mean, I don't understand why anybody's even putting those two words in the same sentence. But losing to Jeff Hardy, I mean, what has Jeff Hardy been doing the last couple of weeks?
Right.
So really what
Cedric Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, what it does to Karrion Kross is it sends a message back to NXT where it's like, you may be the champion there, but you can't even compete with someone who doesn't have a great record in 2021 on this show. It's supposed to make Raw look better than NXT.
Yeah. I mean, look, Karrion Kross, they didn't even give him a full. The entrance wasn't full. He didn't have Scarlett with him.
Yeah.
He comes out. He gets beat by Jeff Hardy. Now, and I agree. Jeff Hardy's not a jobber. He's a legend.
2 minutes too. It was like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
it was like a minute
39.
That's what I was going to say, man. They did the match in less than 3 minutes. He gets a roll up pin. Come on, man.
And it didn't even make sense.
None of
Jeff
it.
Not at all.
Jeff is a baby face. He cheated to win. He had his feet on the rope. He beats a heel with a heel tactic. It makes no sense whatsoever. And talking about the entrance theme and not bringing out Scarlett, I get it. Vince has his own idea of what Karrion Kross is. But what that is arguably the best entrance in pro wrestling as far as the theatrics behind it, the smoke, Scarlett, the whole deal, the big music. Essentially what you did, you neutered the guy. You cut his balls off on the way to the ring. We're already like, oh, okay, what's this? This isn't, and then you have him go over in less than 2 minutes. He takes a loss. Like, sure, they could play some Raw angle, but it almost seems like Vince handled this like he thinks no one that watches Raw watches NXT. There's two separate things going on, but you had the guy come out with the NXT title around his waist, which instantly, I don't know, man. I was shocked that they did him like that. It almost seemed like a veiled insult from, or a shot from Vince to Triple H in some sort of weird way.
And the weird thing about it too, sorry about that. The weird thing about it too is at the end of the match, after he lost, he cut a promo like he had won. Like it was very strange how he cut this promo like, yeah, I'm a monster, and then like walked away. But I have a theory about it. It's maybe because everybody on the internet knows that he was in a dark match for Raw and that he didn't have Scarlett and he didn't have the whole theatrical stuff that we're used to. So let's throw it at the crowd, see how they react, and then when he goes back to NXT, he's more significant now in NXT. Now there's more eyes on him in NXT, so when he does actually come to Raw, maybe he's got more maybe he's already over on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, it's taken a long way around to get to push the guy. It's like, dude, just build him up and make everyone be like, wow, this guy's in NXT, I'm going to go watch NXT. Instead, it's like, let's bury the guy so people can go watch him and see how cool he is over there, and then bring him back. Like, I wouldn't put it past them though.
Weird
it's
very weird.
At first, you didn't want to use the term bury, but
we've gotten there.
But here's the thing. Truth be told, when you really get passionate and start talking about it, you use the word bury because that's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah. And then we talked about it, Joey, too, that he cut the promo after it was over. I think it was Joey that said he cut the promo like he won. And it was so weird that the crowd had no reaction to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you stripped a guy of what made him entertaining. Like, WWE is all about entrances and making these guys entertaining. And you had a guy who had that, and you just stripped him of it. And when he's fighting Jeff Hardy, my first thought is, oh, great, they're going to continue to bury Jeff Hardy. Like, I've been dying to see Jeff Hardy go on a run. This wasn't the way you start a run for a guy that you want to push that's been around forever. Like, nothing about it made any sense at all.
It's not like Jeff Hardy's going to be on NXT next week and then continue a feud, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He won the match. Why would he show up at NXT?
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know Karrion Kross and they're watching Raw and they see him, they're going to think that this is a new gladiator character that they have with nothing else. Like he's a gladiator holding a championship. Very, very odd what they did.
Right.
Yeah. He didn't look special. He didn't look like anything. He looked like a jobber. He looked so plain just coming out there.
There was
no pomp and circumstance to him. It was just kind of the only pomp and circumstance to him was the title around his waist.
Right.
Yep. And talking about Keith Lee, Tom, that was shocking to me because they did the double surprise. You know, I mean, they bring him out and you're like, oh, okay. I don't have a problem with him losing.
No, I don't either.
I don't have a problem. Just make him competitive.
Right.
Like make him, he doesn't have to even like win or dominate anything like that. Just make it a competitive match.
It makes Lashley look better if he beats a guy who gave him a hell of a fight in the end, instead of doing that. And the same thing, it's the same thing they did on Sunday with Kofi. Like, it would have been a better match if it looks like he had a tough time, but he beats him in the end every time, and he keeps beating all these tough guys. But instead, it looks like a joke and a boring matches. Put on a better match for us, and you'll get more respect all around.
Yeah, especially what they did with Keith Lee. I mean, if you look deeper into it, it just shows that there is no creative direction right now in WWE, where their initial thought was, let's bring Keith Lee back. Doesn't matter if he wins or loses, just bring him back so the fans go wild, and then we'll figure out what we'll do with him next week.
Yeah.
That's clearly what happened here, because, I mean,
What
he's
an ass back
in the title picture, but then where does he go from here next week? Does he just come out and pretend that he didn't lose? And by the way, this is the second time after a huge Keith Lee loss that Goldberg came and picked up the scraps.
Yeah.
He did it after his match with McIntyre in January for the Rumble, and now he did it here. So if this was to lead to a match with Keith Lee and Goldberg, then it would make sense. But it's clearly not what they're doing.
No.
Don't give him too much credit.
Yeah, they forget about that stuff and move on. And yeah, man.
I'll be honest, when Keith Lee's music hit and they cut to him with the hood over his head, I'm like, who is this? I didn't even realize it was him at first.
Well, they trotted him out for, a cheap pop surprise to kind of throw people off of the Goldberg surprise, but people didn't even pop for Keith Lee.
No, they didn't.
And
I think they were more confused.
Texas. He's from Texas, which is where they were.
Right.
Oh, that's even worse.
I think he's like a couple hours from Houston, or where were they? Houston or Dallas?
I believe they were Dallas on Monday.
Yeah, I think they were Dallas. But it just showed. I mean, if there was any sort of, I don't know, they've changed his theme song so many times that if you were to hear it right now, chances are most people wouldn't know even know what it was. So that's why
I was confused.
Yeah.
That's why I was confused. I'm like, who is this? I didn't recognize the music. The hood was over his head. I'm like, who is this guy? I'm like, oh, Keith Lee's back. I'm like, okay.
What's the point of having an entrance theme if it's not gonna be relatable to the character?
I mean, they did the same thing with Alistair. He has this kick-ass entrance, setting up like Count Dracula out of the fog, and then they take that from him, and he's just another Joe with hard, heavy music walking to the ring. Like, doesn't make sense, man. Some of the choices they make, it really makes me think, like, are you trying to get this guy, like, to not push this guy and not put him over? Like, what is going on?
All right. Any final thoughts before we move on? Joey, I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, I would prefer, if I had to pick one over the other, I would prefer Keith Lee's loss over what they did with Karrion Kross. But I mean, it just shows that there's really no creative direction. At least if there is, it's very, very odd.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think both guys got screwed.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we can debate on whose stock was hurt more, but at the end of the day, they both were hurt.
Yeah, and it's a shame because both guys could be major players for this company, and like Joey said, the creative is so piss poor that
do better, WWE creative.
Yeah,
maybe Karrion Kross was brought up this quickly, not brought up officially, but brought up for Raw because he said a few weeks ago that he wants to go to Raw or SmackDown, go main event WrestleMania, all that stuff during his promo. So maybe it was just like, hey, you want to do it? Here's your chance. And you failed.
Yeah.
You're not ready.
Well, he's officially on the Raw roster now, so.
Is he really?
Oh.
Yep. I hope they activated that 90-day non-compete clause.
Yeah. It kind of takes away because he's in a great story with Samoa Joe on NXT, where now they gave away the ending that clearly someone's taking that title. Most likely Samoa Joe will take that title off of him.
Yep.
So he can go to Raw officially.
And that's my problem with NXT too. Like, you get a good story and then they pulled somebody and send them up.
Dude, they have great matches down there. They have proven over the last, Monday to me alone proved that NXT in Vince's eyes is no more than a feeder system. Period.
Yep. Does Vince even watch it? I bet you he doesn't even watch NXT.
We can love the matches all we want, but it is a feeder system. The fact that Gargano and Adam Cole and Ciampa are down there, they're lucky that they fight to stay in that company, because everyone else, when they go up, you know, the success rate for someone making a big impact on the main roster after being called up is very, very slim.
Yeah. But what's shocking though is that they're doing SummerSlam on Saturday and TakeOver is the night after on Sunday in August. So that's a weird placement.
That is weird.
Weird. I didn't know that.
They did that because the arena in Vegas wanted SummerSlam on a Saturday. I guess that's what they had available. Or something. Yeah, that's why it's on a Saturday.
Well, if you think Vegas, they have huge, you know, UFC fights, stuff like that. Saturday nights.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's the UFC formula.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next topic, Joey. This is the topic that you brought to the table. Does the return of major part-timers help increase the brightness of active talent, or does it take away from them negatively? I'll let you go ahead and kick this off, Joey.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, so if you bring back guys like John Cena and Goldberg and whoever they bring back, you can even throw in The Rock in there if that is the case. Does that actually like hurt, you know, the talent that we have on the roster right now, putting them in matches? I mean, if you look back last year, you got Goldberg and Dolph Ziggler. Did that hurt Ziggler, or did that increase, sort of say, his brightness on the show? You know, it's kind of a great debate there where does it make sense to bring these guys back, these guys and girls really, to bring them back, and does it affect the main roster who's there each and every week?
I think it's a tale of two stories, because I think with Goldberg, you're not getting a shine from that. To me, like Bobby beating him, Lashley beating him, or when Dolph, you know, lost to him, or The Fiend lost to him, you are not getting shit from that situation. Now, on the reverse of that, Cena, to me, when he trots out there and cuts a promo and Matt Riddle comes down there and they have that moment, I feel like he is getting a positive rub. I feel like Cena is one of those guys that I really pause to call him a part-timer coming back. I still think he's active. I associate Cena with, you know, he's like The Rock. He's one of those top guys. When he comes back and he puts himself right into a title picture, I don't question. I'm like, yes, he deserves that. Goldberg, come on, man. I just don't feel the same way about him. He didn't carry that company for decades. He doesn't deserve anything on that level. Now, yeah, bring him out. You want to do some popcorn novelty match. The Dolph Ziggler match, honestly, I didn't have as much a problem with. It felt right. He wasn't in that main event picture. But when you're making him beat legends, and no one's getting a rub from that.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like, you know, when they brought down Stone Cold one time and he had beers with Becky Lynch, that is the proper use of giving someone the rub.
Yes.
And giving them that brightness that you talk about, Joey. But people like, you know, Goldberg, I think that impacts people negatively.
Yeah, it does, because you're talking about Goldberg, who's now lost how many in a row? You know, he came out and he challenged Drew, and he got squashed by Drew back in January. Now he all of a sudden he comes out and he's like, I need a match with, you know, I'm next for the title. What have you done to deserve a title match? You haven't even been around. You show up once a year, you lose. Like, no, like Lashley should say, you don't deserve a title match. What have you done around here lately? Like, make him actually have a match or two on Raw. Make him actually try and do something, you know. And having Goldberg back doesn't give anything to anyone. He's not giving anybody a rub like Cena did, or like The Rock does, or like Stone Cold does. It's just pointless. It's just for the cheap pop that he got. And as long as the fans keep popping for him like they did, they're going to keep trotting him out there, because why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I think they need to give him those matches on there just to get him ring ready, because he's dangerous, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many people has he almost hurt in the last couple of years? He almost killed The Undertaker.
Yeah. And the big difference is, too, John Cena being back. I mean, this guy just signed on for 15 live event dates through SummerSlam.
Exactly.
15 from now to SummerSlam. That's not even just Raw and SmackDown. That's live events on weekends. Those are Sunday shows. Those are Saturday shows.
That's a full-timer schedule, man.
That's a full-timer schedule. And during a filming of movies, whatever he's doing. I mean, is Goldberg doing that? Is anybody else that they bring back doing that?
No, Cena's still, in my eyes, Cena's to me is still a full-timer.
Yeah.
I still see. I mean, he's gone for a little while, but when he comes back, he's full throttle, man.
Yeah.
When
he
came
never
back at
does
Money-
half-ass.
No.
Nope. When he came back at Money in the Bank at the end with Roman, I got chills. It was like, oh, this is a big fight field. This feels like WrestleMania. Goldberg coming out. I was like, why? Like they're doing such a great job with Lashley right now, where he was kind of, all about the women and the champagne, and now it's no more BS. We're going straight back to the Hurt Business, and you bring out Goldberg. I mean, if he beats Goldberg, that makes Lashley look unstoppable. Granted, what's the point? There's so many There's so many other people that you can put him against. Even if it was Keith Lee, that could work.
Yeah, and Goldberg's, like Tom said, he loses all the time. So it's like I don't feel like it adds to Lashley's unstoppability, like unless he literally crushes him in like 2 minutes, and you're like, holy shit. But even at that point, it's give me something else. Give I don't know. I just
It's crazy because I feel like WWE creative thinks like the fans are like stupid. Like we're not going to remember that he got squashed by Drew McIntyre just 5-6 months ago in January.
And we're going to a lot of this too, because didn't he sign? He has some contract where every year he has two matches
through next year, I believe,
3 or something like that. Yeah,
but I mean, if they had him actually fight Keith Lee at SummerSlam, it would make more sense. It gives you another, you could still have the Lashley defending the title, which is a big match, and then you have Keith Lee going over, a veteran coming back, and let Keith Lee come out and say, hey, you think you're going to go through me and just, twice you did this to me now? You beat me first before you could go fight him. Make that worth something. Do something there. It would make more sense than him just trotting out and challenging Lashley.
Yeah.
Or put Goldberg on a 15 date.
Yeah, right.
15 dates. And let him come out and work and
100%.
Boys, yeah.
Put him on
I made a joke where it's like when you can't afford Brock Lesnar, you get Goldberg.
Right. Right. They need to have him go on like a WCW type of run, a mini one, have him rail off 10 quick spear jackhammer wins. And then maybe it's like, okay, he's worked his way into this match. But the fact that they trot him out and he just instantly comes out, you're next. He gets the title match. I'm like, dude, this is such old hat.
No,
new.
The sad thing is he can't even do a jackhammer anymore. The last few times he's attempted it, he can't hold the guy. He can't get the guy up half the time.
Yeah. A great way to make him look like a legitimate threat again. What if they brought back like Raw Underground for a few weeks and had him just annihilate people?
That's true.
Yeah.
That'd be a good use of that.
I was going to say that'd be the
best segment where he's just like, he spears almost or something, or like something where it's like, let him take out the Viking Raider, something like that.
Right.
It would be awesome.
They're going to hurt anybody because they're not losing.
Yeah.
And it's Goldberg. So if you get speared by Goldberg, it's not like, oh, you got buried. It's like,
see, I love that idea. Put Omos and Goldberg in the same match. Well, you only have to see one match of it.
I would like to see Goldberg come out and do something like that where he looks at the camera and says, Bobby, I'm coming for you. This is what you have to look forward to.
Yeah,
and you
come
out and just
cinematic stuff.
Shop.
Yeah, so he doesn't actually have to wrestle in the ring.
Yeah.
Film some cinematic stuff in the back where you give it 2-3 minutes of it every week leading to SummerSlam. And then he's maybe a threat to Lashley.
Yeah, have him come down for a weekend, knock all of the shots out.
Yeah.
And just film and spread them out over the lead up to SummerSlam. Boom. That's a lot better than, yeah.
Goldberg's really intense. So if you have great promos with him, people will believe it. And I believe he can do great promos if it's well written. So
I don't think Goldberg's ever done a great promo in his life.
Mom hates Goldberg.
I do.
He hates Goldberg. He's not had a single nice thing to say.
I'm not
He's
really
got a nice shiny head. How about that?
Hey, watch it, man.
Just something with him.
I'm not far behind.
Right.
You got to do something with him where it's not the same old storyline where, oh, look, surprise, Goldberg's back and he says he's next and he loses. Because this is like the third or fourth time already.
Yeah, maybe he can't do a full-time thing because his lungs can't take all the sparklers anymore.
Yeah. I think this question leads perfectly into the third question.
Absolutely. I was getting ready to say
Because
the same thing.
the third question is, who is to blame for WWE's bad booking and lack of building young stars? Creative or fans?
Man, what a chicken and the egg type question, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when I think of this Goldberg situation, we're sitting here complaining they brought him out. I can't believe it, but the fans popped huge.
Him and Cena had the loudest pops of the entire night.
They popped huge. So you wonder why Vince trots these part-timers down. The fans are cheering. And like Sneed said, chicken or the egg. Would the fans cheer otherwise? Is it the bad creative? Like, let
me ask a question. Did you hear the pop when Aleister Black showed up in the AEW ring?
Yep.
There's a guy who came up and was over, and for some reason they didn't go with it. The fans were going nuts for him. Everybody loved him, but they didn't stick with it, and that's creative. For some reason, they dropped the ball with him. He was super over. The people loved him.
Well, see,
and for some reason, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
I was going to say the people loved him back then. They dropped the ball. Why did they stop pushing him?
Yeah, I mean, get ready. I agree with you, Tom. So. I don't think it's the fans' fault. I mean, they cheer these guys because they don't have anybody else to cheer for. They're not
100%
anybody to cheer for.
Yep.
I mean, these guys are coming out, and the fans, they want to cheer for somebody, so they cheer for what they know.
And honestly, man, you could trot out The Godfather.
I love the term trot out.
You know what I mean? Like, The Godfather's great, but you could trot out The Godfather and the crowd's going to pop huge for him.
Yep.
Because that's what you're giving them. And they're excited to see someone that they saw when they were kids.
Yep.
And so there is that. Now, is he going to have a John Cena pop? Probably not. But Goldberg has that affection. People are going to pop for it. I always think of a Steve Jobs quote. People don't know what they want until you give it to them. And WWE is not giving us good things. So they're just popping for whatever you're giving us. But they would still pop, and I argue even bigger if you gave them really good creative. AEW, Tom, you brought it up. Malachi Black, they had him in WWE. Crowds would pop. They didn't listen to it. They put him on the shelf, would send him home. What happens? He goes to AEW, lights go out. He shows up. Crowd loses their fucking mind.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's absolutely insane. And the crazy thing about it too is they know how the fans are going to react. It's not the 1990s or whatever, so where a heel gets booed and a babyface gets cheered. It's not like that anymore.
right.
The cool thing to do is to cheer the heels. So if they know what the crowd's going to do, give them something so they do it.
Right.
Because the crowd reaction, whether it's a boo or a cheer, is money for them. So if you do something where it's going to get a loud boo or a loud cheer, that's how you know you're doing something right. And it's not working. Monday Night Raw, this felt like it was going to be the Monday after WrestleMania, like the first show with fans back. And yeah, we got some surprises, but would you rather see Goldberg, come back, hear no more words for the first time in 10 years, or see Keith Lee lose, Karrion Kross lose, all this weird crap happen, and at the end of the night, you're scratching your head like, what the hell what happened?
Right. Well, they don't want to play the long game. You know what I mean? Like, they're not willing to play the long game. They haven't built anyone, and you're not going to get pops every fucking weekend like you would with, trotting Goldberg out. Here I go with that trotting word again. Like, you're not going to get those pops. You have to give time and build your young stars to get to that point where they can get that pop. But if you're not putting in the groundwork, the foundation, and building these young guys, you're never going to get to that point. And newsflash, Vince, these Attitude Era guys that you're leaning heavy on, there's a shelf life to this. What's going to happen when you can't put those guys in matches anymore? and you've spent the last decade to 15 years not establishing those new big stars. I would argue right now, the only true, they throw this word superstar around, but to me, the only true superstar in WWE right now is Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And maybe Sasha.
Yeah.
And Becky Lynch ain't even there, and she's still the most popular over woman in that division.
Yeah.
Unquote.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're not, with these legend nights that they have too, man, like even them relying on having Tatanka and the Boogeyman backstage to get some sort of viewership, that's even going to go away. That's in shelf life too. Even just not even trotting them out, just sitting them down.
Yeah.
It's just becoming the same thing time after time after time. It just,
I mean, look at the last time we saw Big Show, he was sitting in a chair in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a few of those people on as guests on my show where, they've been to, like, for example, Candice Michelle, Carlito. I had interviews with both of them, and they talked about going to these legend nights or Raw, whatever. And ultimately it makes them like feel old. It makes them feel like they're outdated because they're not utilizing them properly. If you're going to bring back these legends on a legend night, do something where they're putting over the talent. They're not like rooting for them in chairs, like
playing poker.
Yeah.
Utilize an interesting take. Like I never thought about that. That's interesting to think about how they feel about that and not feeling good, feeling old about it.
That's very true.
Big last WWE appearance.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was Mark Henry's last WWE appearance. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. And you say
guys
that
are like, I'm out.
Right. And you say you talk to Carlito about it. It's like, I feel like when he's trotted out for a Legends night, he's probably thinking, hey, man, I've still got some gas in the tank.
The dude looked amazing.
He looked amazing.
They promoted him for one of those shows, and he wasn't even asked to be there.
Wow.
It was just to get a reaction. And going back to what we saw on Monday Night Raw, I mean, if you look at and talking about this whole creative thing, for me, I think it is creative. Because if you look at how they started Monday Night Raw, why was John Cena there? Obviously to get a pop, to make the crowd go crazy. Talking about something that we're going to see him say exactly the same thing on Friday. Why was he there on Monday?
Ratings.
Right.
Ratings.
Trying to get a ratings boost.
Provoking Roman Reigns, with Roman Reigns not being there because it's not his show. So obviously he was there to make the crowd go crazy. There's no long-term story there.
Yeah, it's pretty sad how bad Raw is right now because they brought in Cena. They promoted him thinking he's going to pop this rating and get a big pop, which he did get a good pop.
Yeah.
But they went from a 1.4, 1.5, which they've been averaging, to a 1.9. That's not a huge increase in their viewership. When The Rock came back for the first episode of SmackDown on Fox, that was 4 million. And now they're averaging around 2. So that was a 2 million increase for The Rock. But Raw's creative is such shit right now.
Yeah.
Even John Cena couldn't bring back millions of fans. He brought back about 400,000 or 500,000 people.
Yeah. If they were Raw, like if they would have said 2 weeks ago, John Cena returns the Monday after Money in the Bank, right? Promote it like that. And then he surprises coming early at Money in the Bank. That would have worked too.
Yep.
And the ratings for Raw would have probably been higher. It was promoted 2 weeks in advance. It's so many creative things they can do that I feel like they're missing the opportunity. And it's not rocket science. It's just listen to the fans.
They swing and miss all the time. And the ratings were going to go up with fans being back this week, whether Cena was there or not. They probably got a few more people. But you talk about a brand split, and you have Cena come out to talk about the SmackDown guy on Raw. That doesn't make any sense. If it's a true brand split, he should be coming out on Friday, not on Monday. Why was he there? It's just such a lack of continuity in the company and what they try to do.
I mean, the only positive that came out of that was he did give a little bit of shine to Riddle.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Riddle's the only guy they've kind of continued to go with coming out of NXT in so long. And, you just keep wondering how long are they going to keep going with this before they screw him out of his push.
And, even with Karrion Kross too, like there's what was the reason for him losing to Jeff Hardy in a minute 40, whatever it was. It's like, if you want to make him look strong, when it's some sort of story, okay, you can allow him to lose. Jeff Hardy pins him in under 2 minutes. He goes crazy, starts, ripping apart the ring. And then Triple H comes out and says, listen, man, this is not how us NXT guys act. And then he punches Triple H and walks away. Now he still looks like a dominant monster.
Yep.
He can go back to NXT, finish his story, or he can stay on Raw and he looks like, oh my God, that guy just punched the boss. He's a badass.
Yeah.
So there's other things that they can do that they're not doing. And they have the tools right there. It's like they have the tool belt on, but they're using their hands with no tools.
I wish they would have went the Kevin Owens route and, screw Bill Goldberg. Like, if you want to bring Karrion out, give him that badass entrance, comes down to the ring, gets in Bobby Lashley's face. Boom. When Kevin Owens came in, he came in and dropped Cena on his head.
Absolutely.
Yep.
He went right into the main event picture, and we were at that Money in the Bank where they had that match, and it was one of the best matches I've seen. Like those two tore it up, and he was the NXT champion at that time when he came up.
Yeah.
So,
well, Joey, I think you summed it up. We've talked about this now for the past 12 minutes, and I think you summed it up with 4 words in the statement that you just last made. Listen to the fans.
Yeah.
Listen to the fans, man. That's one thing that they have that they just don't do.
Yeah.
We never get them listening to the fans. And I feel
And they trotted out there, what is it, 4 years ago now, and now I'm using a trotted word, and they said, we're going to listen to you. We haven't been listening. We're going to listen to you, and you haven't listened to us once.
The biggest lie in professional wrestling history. Those
yeah.
all of them, the whole McMahon family standing out there. We're going to give you what you want, and then
that was like a politician getting up there running for president.
There has been 2 moments in the last 3 or 4 years that really made me sour on the main roster product. One was what you guys are discussing when the McMahons came out and said, we're going to listen. The other was the big announcement when they said that Eric Bischoff's coming back, Paul Heyman's coming back, Bruce Pritchard's coming back, and we're going to let them have free reign to tell their stories.
Okay.
I remember talking to Sneed when that news dropped. We were like, holy shit.
This is going to be
Vince is stepping back. They might screw it up, but it's different. They're letting someone else run the show. This is exciting. What happened? Bischoff was shit canned a month later. Pritchard ended up taking over both shows, and now we're where we're at right now.
And Heyman was doing an excellent job.
He was.
Yeah.
Well, he saw things that the fans wanted to see, and he was ready to go with it if it was up to him. It amazes me that the creative is the same for Raw and SmackDown, when at least SmackDown attempts to put on a decent wrestling show, and Raw's not even close.
You know what the big difference is, Tom?
What?
Paul Heyman's over there. What's the best story on the main roster right now? Roman
Reigns.
Who's involved with that? Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman is, they do not give him enough credit. The guy shows that he has a mind for the business.
Yeah.
Anything he touches, when he was in charge of Raw and he was helping build some of that younger talent, like they were putting on great matches. Yeah. Angel Garza, some of those matches he was putting on, even the Humberto, Apollo, there was a lot of good stuff happening, and they just never gave it time. Vince wanted it now. Yep. I don't know, man.
Slow it down.
That's not what happens in wrestling. You got to build to it. You got to let it develop organically. You can't force it. If you try to force it, this is what happens.
Yep.
And listen, they'll turn around and say, "Oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. We do give the fans what we want. What you want. We gave Nikki Cross the Raw Women's Championship on Monday Night Raw. She cashed in. Yeah, that's what everybody wanted." But how long do you think that's going to last before Charlotte Flair takes it back from her? The next pay-per-view?
Right.
SummerSlam.
Next Monday?
Yeah.
Somewhere between Monday and SummerSlam.
They give us what we want very quickly, and then they go back just to say, like, check it off a list. We gave them what they wanted. Now we're back to business.
They'll do it on a house show. If they had house show, they'd do it on a house show and then bring Charlotte back as champ the next TV.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like when they gave Zack Ryder the Intercontinental title, and then the next night they bring
gave it to him for
like let's
24 hours.
give him that WrestleMania moment and then have him lose it.
One of the biggest pops of that WrestleMania, by the
It was
way.
huge.
Yep.
Huge pop.
Yeah.
And then the next night they
Who took
ripped it out of her?
Ziggler
The
took
Miz.
it.
No,
The
Miz.
Miz.
That's when Maurice came back.
Yep.
They're missing so many opportunities. There's so many different things that they can do. It's just. And if you look back, if you look even deeper, like look at the writers they have. What was that one writer that just got fired?
The comedian.
oh, we have a WWE champion. His name is like
Bobby Ashley.
Ashley or something. She didn't even know the guy's name. Like she doesn't know anything about wrestling.
She even made the statement, maybe I should learn that.
Yeah.
Come on.
She said, oh, yeah, the Hurt Business. I think they're a bunch of guys that stand around and act cool. And
yeah.
Good God. This is who's writing the shows.
And to really answer your question on this topic, it's not the fans. It's not even creative. It's management who's picking the creative.
Yep.
You know, they're picking people that may have, and I've applied for these jobs before, so I know what they're looking for. And they look for TV writers, Hollywood writers, script writers. You don't have to learn, you don't have to know wrestling. There's an option on the application, like how well do you know wrestling? Like,
yep.
You don't need to know about wrestling. You need to know how to write for TV, write, movies, Hollywood. And they're just picking, cherry picking who they want. And unfortunately, this is not something that you have to know wrestling to write this show.
That's a perfect point because it's very easy to cast stones at all the scapegoats known as writers. But all of those scripts, all of those ideas, all of those angles have to be checked off by the big man.
Yeah.
By one man. Yep.
Vince McMahon. And what, he gets that stuff and then he puts his fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the issue.
And sometimes there can be some great stuff on there that we'll never know about because he changes it.
Right.
Yeah, you hear that they're rewriting scripts all day long, right up until airtime.
Yeah, hours before Raw. I mean, this is the flagship show of $1 billion company, and you're rewriting the script hours before. I mean, I've heard stories where, for example, my latest interview was with Tucker from Heavy Machinery, being released from WWE, and he said the angle where he turned on Otis, he had to be there at 2:00, and they called him at 1:00 to come to the arena.
Wow.
He was on a golf course when they called him.
Wow.
Oh my!
He had no idea what was happening. He waited for them to give him something, and then basically like, you're turning on Otis tonight. Like, it's just crazy. Like, you can't do that.
And and listen to all the released people. I think it's very short-sighted by fans to always say when talent is released and they do these interviews and they air their grievances and fans are like, oh, they're just disgruntled. They're giving you a window into how that company works. Yeah. When you hear Aleister Black, when you hear the Iconics, when you hear Mickie James talk about these ideas that they went to Vince with, that they pitched Vince and it got shut down. When you hear about Moxley talking about trying to talk him out of things and it gets shut down. These are
FTR.
FTR. We're talking about people that are creative. They have ideas for their characters, but they fall on deaf ears. So for fans to really be, this is where I'm going to kind of go at the fans, where you can't, dude, quit being apologists for a system that I don't want to say it's completely broken, but there's a system that has many issues. And to just say that all of these people, every single person that gets released and bitches about it, is just disgruntled former employees.
Yeah.
You can't, it's like you're blind to what's really going on. The evidence is out there if you look for it.
Yeah, when it's every single person saying the same thing.
Yeah.
No.
And they tell it in the nice way. They don't even it's not like they're complaining. They're at the end of the day, they don't want to, be so negative about it where one day they can't ever get a job there again. Yep. So they're going to say it in the nice way. That's what we're hearing. We're not, we don't hear about being sent trash bags of their gear and their stuff. We would never hear about that until Mickie James came out with it. I mean, and now if you think about that, you get released from a company for budget cuts and they send you a garbage bag of your things.
Right.
Like, to me, I mean, if you owned a business and you let go one of your employees because you had to make budget cuts, it wasn't on bad terms, and you send them their stuff in a garbage bag.
It makes it on bad terms.
It makes you not ever want to go back to that place.
Right. That's a great point, Joey, because we're hearing the very toned down, safe, I don't want to burn a bridge version.
Exactly.
When the boys are talking amongst themselves without a podcaster or an interviewer putting a mic in their face, I want to hear those stories.
Yeah. I would love to hear a conversation between Tommy End and Thea Trinidad right now with her being back there, her being stuck back there, and then he gets fired after she signs.
You know,
that until she's gone again.
Yeah,
because they got her.
If I could hear any story right now, if I could hear any conversation between two people, I want to hear the conversations that Triple H and Shawn Michaels have in NXT.
Oh yeah.
I want to hear what they're talking about when these guys get pulled up. I want to hear not Vince involved when no one else can hear. Those are the conversations I want to hear.
Let's be honest. I bet you Dynamite is on Triple H's DVR and they make sure they watch it every single week.
I guarantee it.
Of course. You know, when Moxley was released, and I mean, he was kind of injured at the time, Triple H kept checking in with him and Renee to make sure that if he needed anything. I mean, Triple H is that guy.
Right.
You know, like, and that's how it should be. If you leave a company to go to a competitor, you want to stay cool with them, you know, because at the end of the day, it's TV rating competition, but everyone's still friends, you know, back and forth at the end of the day. They're all still a big family, you know, wrestlers and being on the road. There's so much they have in common that no one will ever understand. There's a different bond that they all have that even fans will never understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
I don't know. I don't think that WWE is running they're not being efficient with their talent, their creative, their even if you look at their look at everything, look at their merch on the Shop Zone. Like if you look back 10 years ago to what they're selling now, you're like, this is garbage.
Right.
Garbage.
Yeah.
A superstar gets a t-shirt now and it's just their name. It's not like, look back at all the Cena shirts, look at all the Edge shirts from 10, 15 years ago. There was effort put in. I think that's what's missing. Effort.
Right.
Unfortunately, none of this is going to change until Vince McMahon is not in charge anymore.
Go be a football Vince.
Go be a pawpaw, Vince. Go
Time
home.
to go home. Be a pawpaw man.
Sit with the grandkids.
Yep. Hand the keys over.
It's time, man.
It's time,
Go
man.
be a pawpaw.
Please.
Yep.
Listen to the board of directors, like that whole angle they did a few years ago with Triple H.
Yeah.
The board of directors took him out.
yeah.
Crying in the ring.
Well, Joey, man, we've had a blast having you on. Let everybody know where they can find you in the Angle Podcast.
Of course, yeah. So you can follow the Angle Podcast at the Angle Radio all across social media. You can find me on Twitter or on YouTube at the Angle Podcast. There's a bunch of different interviews there. Latest one was with Tucker from, like I said, Heavy Machinery. There's also interviews with DDP, Eric Bischoff, Rosemary, Moose. I mean, there's a plethora of different interviews on there, as well as different prediction shows and review shows for all the pay-per-views. I try to do all of them. It's very hard. But yeah, or you can just go to theangleradio.com, which is kind of the home base of everything. And I appreciate you guys having me on. And if all those people listening and watching, like and subscribe and, you know, comment just something. Let them know you love the show.
Yeah,
Awesome.
man. We definitely got to have you back in the future. And
Oh, yeah, you're always welcome on, man. Anytime you want to come
I
debate,
appreciate that.
we love talking wrestling.
I love wrestling. I love talking wrestling. So this is perfect. Perfect
Sweet,
match.
man.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for the evening. Tom, before we go ahead and get your plugs in, man.
The Turnbuckle sessions every Wednesday morning, wherever you get your podcast. The OG Fit Kid, Twitter and Instagram.
And if you want to go ahead and give them the code, Tom.
give them the code.
Ooh, the new ringside code, Tavern. Save 10% at ringsidecollectibles.com.
Awesome. Court is dismissed.